Hello, you're watching A News. I'm Batyar Sanov, and let's see the top stories shaping our world. Donald Trump says the United States will continue work to resolve the Gaza crisis. Dutch ministers resign over disagreements on Gaza policy. Vladimir Putin says he sees light at the end of the tunnel in U.S.-Russia relations. U.S. President Donald Trump has reaffirmed his administration's commitment to resolving the ongoing hostage crisis in Israel. Speaking on Friday, he called the situation extortion and insisted it must come to an end. Trump pointed to his past record on securing hostage releases and assured families that efforts are underway to free those still held in Gaza. His comments came as Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced that Israel is ready to resume negotiations following Hamas's acceptance of a temporary ceasefire plan brokered by Egypt and Qatar. Israeli officials say talks will begin once a location is agreed.
You know, I'm very proud to say I got the hostages out. You have hundreds of people that are living now because of me. And now we have that final little group of people. And Hamas knows that if they give them, that's probably the end of their lives. So it's not easy to get. And I know if you're a parent, you just don't care. I want my baby back. They want their babies back. They want their kids back. And I understand it. But I got them out and did a good job. And we're doing everything we can to get the hostages out. Thank you.
The world's leading authority on food crises said that Gaza Strip's largest city is gripped by famine. It said that it's likely to spread across the territory without a ceasefire and an end to restrictions on humanitarian aid. But Israel disagrees.
Gaza City and its surrounding area is now experiencing famine, a UN-backed body of food security experts has confirmed. United Nations Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, which is used by governments and international bodies to identify hunger levels around the world, has raised its classification to Phase 5, the highest and most severe. It says that over 500,000 people across the Gaza Strip are facing catastrophic conditions characterized by starvation, destitution, and death. It also marks the first time a famine has been officially confirmed in Gaza.
The famine declared today in Gaza Governorate by the IPC is the direct result of actions taken by the Israeli government. It has unlawfully restricted the entry and distribution of humanitarian assistance and other goods necessary for the survival of the civilian population in the Gaza Strip.
Hamas calls for urgent action as UN confirms Gaza famine situation. But Israel dismissed the findings as false and biased, saying the IPC had based its survey on partial data largely provided by Hamas, which did not take into account a recent influx of food.
Dutch Foreign Minister Caspar Veldkamp resigned from the caretaker government after his proposal for new sanctions against Israel, including a ban on imports from settlements, was blocked by coalition partners. His departure triggered the exit of all remaining ministers and state secretaries from his new social contract party, plunging Prime Minister Dick Schoof's fragile administration deeper into crisis ahead of the upcoming October elections. The move follows mounting international alarm over escalating famine and humanitarian suffering in Gaza City amid stalled efforts to impose meaningful pressure on Israel. And now to Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky welcomed NATO chief Mark Rutte in Kiev on Friday for talks on security guarantees by other states for his country. Speaking at a joint press conference with Rutte in Kiev, Zelensky said the guarantees ought to be similar to NATO's Article 5, which considers an attack on one member of the alliance as an attack against all.
Can you go outside?
Good to see you guys. Good to know each other.
Russian President Vladimir Putin said he sees light at the end of the tunnel for Russia-U.S. relations following a very good, meaningful and frank summit with President Trump in Alaska. He credited Trump's leadership as a potential catalyst for mending ties that have hit post-Cold War lows and noted both nations are exploring joint ventures in the Arctic and Alaska, rich with mineral and energy potential. Despite geopolitical tensions, especially over Ukraine, Putin's comments signal cautious optimism, highlighting that progress now hinges on U.S. leadership.
As for our relations with the United States, they are in the lowest level since World War II. I've said this many times. But with the arrival of President Trump, we are starting to see light in the end of the tunnel. And recently, we've had a very good and frank meeting in Alaska. The contacts continue on the ministerial and officials and business level. I really hope that the first steps that have been taken are just the beginning of a full-scale restoration of our relations. This doesn't depend on us. It depends on our Western partners, first of all, in the wider sense, because the US are bound by certain obligations in various associations, including the North Atlantic Bloc. Therefore, the next steps now depend on the leadership of the United States.
An industrial plant exploded in Louisiana on Friday as a thick black smoke rose over the town of Roseland. The blast happened shortly before 1 p.m. local time at Smitty's Supply, a local lubricant manufacturer. Authorities initially ordered evacuations in the immediate area, later expanding the zone to a 1-mile radius around the facility. While no injuries have been reported, emergency teams remain on site as a precaution. As heavy smoke surges from the plant, investigators work to determine what caused the explosion. Turkey says it will send military experts to Syria. It's aimed at assessing defense needs and drawing up a joint plan for restructuring the Syrian armed forces. Our correspondent Ali Aziz has more.
Turkey's defense ministry says it will send experts to Syria for technical visits to assess defense needs and draft a joint roadmap to rebuild the Syrian armed forces. Officials explained that technical visits mean delegations of Turkish military experts will travel to Syrian bases and institutions to evaluate gaps in training, equipment, and logistics. The findings will guide joint programs for rebuilding Syria's defense capacity. The announcement comes after the signing of a joint training and consultancy memorandum of understanding on August 13th, which officials say has already sped up military cooperation. Under the agreement, Syrian officers have started official visits, including a recent trip by the Damascus Training Department chief to Turkey's National Defense University. Training sessions are underway at Syria's request, part of what both sides describe as a long-term effort to restructure the Syrian armed forces under the principle of one state, one army. The ministry underlined that this cooperation is being coordinated directly with Syria's defense ministry and is aimed at ensuring regional peace and stability after more than a decade of civil war. At the same time, officials rejected speculation that Turkey is preparing to send peacekeeping troops to Ukraine, insisting no such deployment is under discussion. Next steps in Syria are expected to include border training initiatives, more on-the-ground technical visits, and rebuilding Syria's defense institutions, as Ankara positions itself as a central partner in Syria's reconstruction and regional security. For A News, this is Ali Aziz, Istanbul, Turkey.
Turkey has laid a foundation for a major new railway linking Kars, Iğdır, Aralık and Dilucu. Transport and Infrastructure Minister Abdülkadir Uraloğlu says the line will serve as the key to opening the Zengezur corridor. He called the project both geopolitical and geostrategic, boosting trade, strengthening cooperation in the South Caucasus, and supporting peace. Uraloğlu also highlighted Turkey's wider investments.
Son 23 yılda
over the past 23 years, Turkey has invested $300 billion in transport infrastructure, with $64 billion allocated to railways. In 2025, an additional 3,000 kilometers of new track have been added. bringing our total railway length to 14,000 kilometers. This railway will make a major contribution to regional and global trade. The project once again proves Turkey's mission of mediation and its contribution to peace. Turkey is presenting a vision that considers the future of the global economy. Kars will be the Iron Gateway, Ida will become a global trade hub, while Aralık and Dilucu will be the key to the Zangezur corridor. The Kars, Ida, Aralık, Dilucu railway line is more than a transport project. It is a road of unity, prosperity and peace that will resonate internationally. This route will strengthen economic cooperation in the South Caucasus, accelerate the opening of borders and speed up the normalization of diplomatic relations.
Yesterday, Turkmenistan hosted a high-level diplomatic event. Leaders from Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan arrived there to discuss trade, transport, energy and cultural cooperation.
Turkmenbashi, the Caspian port city, became the stage for a high-stakes regional summit. Leaders from Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan came together to chart a new chapter in cooperation. A guard of honor was lined up at the Turkmenbashi International Airport in honor of the head of state, where President Aliyev and President Mirziyoyev were warmly welcomed by senior Turkmen officials, including Deputy Chairman of the Cabinet of Ministers for Trade, Nokirguli Atagulyev. A high-level meeting was held between Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan. President of Azerbaijan Ilham Aliyev, Chairman of the Halk Maslakati of Turkmenistan Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov, and President of Uzbekistan Shavkat Mirziyoyev posed for a joint photo. During an expanded bilateral meeting, President Aliyev and Chairman Berdimuhamedov emphasized the deep historical and cultural ties between Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan. Berdimuhamedov highlighted the potential to further expand political, diplomatic, trade, economic, cultural and humanitarian cooperation, including energy, transport and the textile industry. President Aliyev underlined the strategic importance of the East-West transport corridor passing through both countries, noting how modern seaports, airports and railways in Turkmenistan and Azerbaijan are creating advanced infrastructure for regional connectivity. He stressed that frequent, high-level meetings send a strong message of brotherhood and solidarity to the region and the world. The discussion also touched on the potential of a transport corridor involving Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan. The meeting concluded with a joint press statement, reaffirming the leaders' commitment to peace, stability and new cooperation formats in the South Caucasus and Central Asia. Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan signed a joint statement reaffirming their cooperation. Several agreements were also concluded, including a memorandum of understanding on developing international air connections between Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan, a protocol on establishing sister city ties between Fuzuli and Arkadag, and a trilateral MOU on transport and logistics cooperation among the three countries' transport ministries and railway authorities. At the end of the event, Chairman of the Halk Maslakati of Turkmenistan Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov, on behalf of President of Turkmenistan Serdar Berdimuhamedov and the Turkmen people, presented the head of state with an Akalteke horse named Taus. President Aliyev described the day as historic, emphasizing that Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan will continue to move forward shoulder to shoulder as brotherly nations.
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi held a joint phone conversation with his French, German and British counterparts, as well as the EU foreign policy chief, which was focused on Tehran's peaceful nuclear program and removal of sanctions. Our Turaj Shiralilo has more.
Foreign Minister Araghchi discussed Iran's nuclear program and removal of the sanctions with the foreign ministers of European powers, France, Germany and the UK, along with the EU foreign policy chief. The Foreign Ministry said in a statement the Iranian Foreign Minister warned the European side about their threat to call for reactivation of UN nuclear sanctions. The conversation was held before the deadline set by the European powers to demand the snapback mechanism or return of UN nuclear sanctions in October if they do not reach an agreement with Iran by end of August. It was agreed that Iran and the European Troika will negotiate again next Tuesday at the level of the deputy foreign ministers. In an interview with IRNA news agency, Araghchi said the IFRI suggested extension of the expiry of UN Resolution 2231 beyond 18th of October out of understanding that they would fail in their bid. In the meantime, Tehran has stepped up its diplomatic contacts with Beijing and Moscow, which, similar to the European powers, are signatories of the 2015 JCPOA Iran nuclear agreement. China and Russia, which are both permanent members of the UN Security Council, wielding the veto power, have openly opposed the reactivation of UN nuclear sanctions against Iran. Araghchi also said that Iran will dispatch a delegation to Vienna to meet officials from the International Atomic Energy Agency IAEA in coming days to discuss new cooperation modality in the wake of the 12-day war last June. Turaj Shiralilu, reporting for A News TV, Tehran.
Iran launched its first military exercise since the end of its 12-day war with Israel, state television reported on Thursday. A video shared by the Iranian military showed Navy vessels launching missiles at targets in the sea in the Gulf of Oman and the Indian Ocean. Iran state media reported that the Sustainable Power 1404 exercises aims to enhance combat capabilities, improve operational command and control, and create deterrence through domestic capabilities. Afghanistan and Kazakhstan are strengthening cooperation in the health sector. Kabul's Minister of Public Health met with the ambassador of Kazakhstan in Kabul to discuss ways of expanding medical support and training opportunities. Our correspondent Tamim Bahis has more.
The Minister of Public Health met with the ambassador of Kazakhstan in Kabul, where both sides discussed improving the skills of Afghan healthcare workers, expanding services in remote areas, providing hospital equipment, and sharing expertise in controlling infectious diseases. The minister stressed that Afghanistan is working to build general hospitals in over 300 districts, with the goal of reducing maternal and child mortality and ensuring equal access to healthcare across the country. He called on Kazakhstan to support these efforts either by providing equipment or investing in the construction of hospitals, particularly in northern Afghanistan. The ambassador reaffirmed Kazakhstan's commitment, calling Afghanistan a friendly partner, and pledged training opportunities for Afghan doctors and nurses, as well as sending technical teams to support joint programs. This meeting reflects broader bilateral ties between the two nations. Kazakhstan has been active in Afghanistan through trade, education, and humanitarian aid, including wheat exports and scholarships for Afghan students. Health cooperation now adds another dimension in this relationship, as both countries seek to expand mutual engagement. Officials on both sides say the new initiatives mark an important step in strengthening Afghanistan-Kazakhstan relations, with healthcare emerging as a key area of focus for future cooperation. This is Tamim Bahis in Kabul for A News.
That's a news update for now from Baku, and for more updates, stay tuned to A News.